Town of Southampton Board of Selectmen's meeting, April 17th at 6 p.m. Calling the meeting in order. This meeting is being televised and recorded. We'll start the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I trust everyone's been enjoying the weather we've been having. Waking up early in the morning and seeing snow and sleet at this time of year is sort of really, never mind, I'm not going to say anymore, I just get myself in trouble. There is no hearings, there are no appointments. Reports of the select board members. Any reports?
I attended the Finance Committee meeting last night, went over the budget and the warrant articles, and they forwarded on to the town administrator which ones they're agreeing with and which ones they're not, so he has all that now.
I was at the assessors, nothing new there.
Okay, I have nothing new. Town administrator's report.
All right. As you know, we have received a notification from the Wayne's attorney for the town's right of first refusal, along with a certified copy of an executed purchase and sale agreement for the property located at 111 Glendale Road, which is approximately 85 acres, due to conversion to single-family residential through subdivision. The offer to purchase the property is $720,000. This property is currently in Chapter 61 forestry classification. You should have copies of that letter and information in your packages or electronically. They also notified the Conservation Commission, the Planning Board, and the Board of Assessors. So now the clock ticks.
How much time is on that, Ed?
120 days.
From April 10th.
Right, from date of notification.
So Concom and other committees, how long until they make a recommendation to us?
Well,
when are they scheduled? When are the meetings?
Concom is 4/23.
4/23? Pardon?
It's on the agenda for the planning board tomorrow.
Thank you. Planning board agenda tomorrow?
So there's plenty of time for them to respond.
So is that 120 days for an answer, or does it have to be purchased? How does that process work?
that would be through basically securing funding and moving forward with purchasing, so yes.
120 and then 90 to the closing.
Right.
So we'd have to commit in the 120 days officially, and then 90 more days for closing.
Yep.
Okay. Still, we don't want to wait too long.
No.
No.
Okay.
What was the address for that property?
111 Glendale Road.
So can we keep this on our agenda, next couple agendas, just so?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I will send out a reminder letter to Planning Board, Conservation, and Board of Assessors to make sure that we get apprised of anything, any decision they make.
Is it on the Board of Assessors tonight? Do you know, on their agenda tonight? Because they're meeting.
They had it, I left before they talked about it.
Okay, so they have it?
They have a
Okay.
copy of it, but I wasn't
Okay,
sure
good.
it was gonna act on it.
We couldn't put it on the agenda for tonight because it wasn't 48-hour notice, so I don't know if they're able to on this particular meeting.
So we'll have to check with them. And you're on the planning board, Jim, right?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
And,
You're on
I haven't looked at
Concom?
the agenda, but apparently Marla said it's there for tomorrow, so.
Okay, so we have representation on all of them.
Okay, Ed, next.
The appraisals for the Glendale Road easements for the road improvement project are due back to the town by the end of next week. And the Democratic Town Committee would like to sponsor a candidates forum for candidates running for the office of selectman. They would like to include 3 questions from the members of the select board who are not running for re-election this year. So if you would please submit your questions to me, and I will pick 3 of those questions and forward them along to the Town Democratic Committee for inclusion in the Select Board Candidates Forum.
You have any
And you
clue?
have a date, you said? I didn't.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
When do you want the questions in by?
I would probably ask that you get them to me by no later than a week from today, so I can get them to them.
Okay.
And question, would the Select Board prefer to have Town Council here for the annual town meeting or available to us by telephone?
They're not generally here, are they?
Um,
Yeah, sometimes they are. Yeah.
Oh.
The last couple of years, I remember, by phone.
By
By
phone,
phone,
not
yeah.
here.
I'm sure the price is a lot better.
It is, yep.
It's much cheaper.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
would say, unless somebody has a reason, I think phones.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I agree.
Okay. Thank you.
Now, is it possible we can just like Zoom her in, using Zoom, so there will be a physical connection there?
You have to go talk to your town moderator if you want to take and do anything electronic in that room.
So I will talk to him later.
I would.
Okay, Mr. Moderator?
You start zooming him around, there could be issues.
And to let you know, the $500 which was budgeted for the annual town reports for 2017 will only print about 77 reports. Would the Select Board like to pursue me finding other funding sources to print additional annual town reports? Last year, 200 reports were printed at an approximate cost of $1,200.
Were they all taken at town meeting, or we brought a lot back here just to hand out during the year?
Don't know, I was not here. I think most of them went at the annual town meeting, and actually whether we print up 77 or 200 of them, my recommendation and my assistant's recommendation may be to actually not have them available at town meeting and have people pick them up here at the week before. Last year, I'm told there was 244 people that attended the annual town meeting, and we would anticipate even more than that for this year due to interest in the override and also in the citizen petition for chapter land purchase.
Do we get a PDF version?
Yeah, put that on the town website.
Yes, in fact, is that on as of today? Yes, that's already on the town website.
Yeah,
Okay, so maybe
Go
we
ahead.
can just print with the amount of copies that we that we have in the budget for it, and the rest can just access it online.
yeah, I mean, it's only $700, but $700 can help somebody somewhere.
All right, very good, thank you. And just a reminder, there'll be a farewell party for Velda Goldberg on Wednesday, April 25th at noon here in Town Hall.
Understand there'd be quite the speech from Velda at this, is that true?
Mm-hmm. And then upcoming next Board of Selectmen's meeting will be Tuesday, May 1st, prior to the annual town meeting, in case anything is needed at that time. The May Select Board meeting dates are May 8th and May 22nd, and there'll be a department heads meeting tomorrow, Wednesday, April 18th at 10:30 a.m.
I'm assuming the May 1st meeting will be in the library at the elementary school?
Yes, I will confirm that that's available, but that's where it was last for the special.
Okay, all set, Ed?
I am all set, thank you.
All right, the next thing is new business on the agenda. Every month or so, we ask a department head to come in to sort of just give us an update on their department, so we have a better feel and understanding of what's happening in town. We grasp stuff out of Facebook, we hear stuff in the newspaper, we hear rumors, but sometimes it's kind of nice to have a department head come in and just sort of give us an overview of what they've been dealing with and what they see. With that, would Chief Goyette please approach the podium?
Good evening. Not snowing. It's a good thing,
huh?
Or raining. All right. So I haven't been here in a while, so I do have a few things to cover, but I'm going to start with recent investigations that don't include the everyday type of call or arrests. And some of these just, they stand out, and just wanted to bring it to the attention of what's been going on in our town. In regards to the break-in at the Stop and Save that happened almost a year ago now, Southampton police broke a major 7-state crime ring. The investigation is still ongoing. 3 suspects are in jail, 1 arrested 2 weeks ago, a warrant out for a 4th suspect. The suspects were involved in stealing money from ATMs from convenience stores in the states of Rhode Island, Connecticut, Massachusetts, New York, Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont. Over $1 million in stolen money and damages by this crime syndicate. 1 store had a gun store in it, and 20 firearms were stolen, to include 3 AR-15 assault rifles and 5,000 rounds of ammunition. Our police department interviewed one of the suspects and got a confession. The ATF has now taken the gun case and is using the evidence recovered by our department for the case. 5 search warrants in Massachusetts were done by us, and 3 in Connecticut. A heroin dealer that was out on bail for trafficking heroin was the target of a Southampton investigation. He was arrested in Southampton while making deliveries of heroin. At the time of his arrest, he had approximately 250 bags of heroin on him, $12,000 in cash. Drugs and money were seized at the time of the arrest. We're using this serial child rapist title because there are several victims. Very limited information to release on this case, as it's still open and active, but suspect has been arrested by us. We're still identifying victims and have another interview with a potential victim this week. All victims are between the ages of 3 and 5. Burglary suspects broke into a person's home and stole $20,000 worth in dirt bikes while the victim was asleep. 2 search warrants were executed by our department. 1 suspect confessed. Charges are filed on 4 suspects, and 1 dirt bike has been recovered. Case of a rape of a child over a 2-year period. The suspect was arrested and awaiting trial. No further info at this time. Subway robbery back in 2015. We actually made an arrest in that case, and the person's awaiting trial. He was identified or ID'd by a DNA sample recovered from the scene. A pregnant woman was intentionally kicked in the stomach by a suspect trying to cause her to have a miscarriage. The mother miscarried less than 4 hours later. Suspect was arrested, awaiting trial. 3 break-in and enterings are still unsolved, with over $20,000 in cash being stolen from 3 victims. We believe the suspects were identified, but based on limited evidence and suspects would not cooperate, no charges filed at this time. Break-in and entering stopped once the suspects were identified and interviewed. The suspects have been arrested and charged by other communities for other break-in and enterings. Child abuse case where it was reported that a child less than 2 had been beaten severely, causing extensive injuries to include multiple broken bones. Child was removed by DCF, case open, still under investigation by our department. Let's see, and an adult, there's a report of an adult that had been raped, and the case is open, charges pending. And there's been multiple unattended deaths within the town, and we had one that person unfortunately was there for approximately 2 weeks before being discovered. So that's just a few of the cases that we've had recently. Our Facebook page, as Charlie had mentioned, we've been using that a lot to reach out to people. We've used it for advising of scams, lost and found animals, lots of animals being lost out there. Power outages, breaking and entering taking place, and asking for public's help in identifying pictures of individuals involved in shopliftings. It's been a great tool that's worked for us and getting information out to the public. Happy to report there's been no major injuries or sicknesses within our department that have caused anybody to be out of work for any extended period of time. With that being said, Officer Grober is doing fantastic, doing very well. I have put, and that's helped with overtime costs, lowering the overtime costs from last fiscal year, because we haven't had many people out with injuries. Let's see. Our third Ford Explorer is on the road. It has been for a while now, but like I said, I haven't been here for a while. So that gives us 3 Ford Explorers in our fleet now, and we still have a couple of the Crown Vics that are still working and on the road with limited use. I'd like to put a thank you out to publicly to the Scout Troop 210 of Southampton. They dedicated their Pinewood Derby car to our department that they had decorated up in honor of Mark Rober, our officer, who's been fighting cancer, and I thought it was a great, thoughtful gesture by them. Jeremy Larochelle was hired full-time back on April 1st in 2017, and he's been doing a great job. He's a dispatcher with us for the last 15 years. Josh Lamb, Kelsey Davey, Alexandria Cape-Imperizo, and John Roach have been sworn as part-timers over the last year. Our med return collection kiosk located in our lobby has been doing fantastic. In 2017, we collected 270.4 pounds of prescription medications and drugs that people dropped off, and that's a 106-pound increase from the year prior. And with that being said, this April 28th on Saturday this month, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., we're going to be involved with the National Drug Take Back Day. We usually do those in the fall, but they have them in the spring, and this year the DA's office and Sheriff's Department wanted to be part of the spring collection. So anybody who has unwanted drugs, medications that they want to drop off at that day, it's going to be held here at the Town Hall parking lot, so people can drop those off. And if they can't make that, our kiosk is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We started the Triad program up again. Those of you that don't know what Triad is, it's a partnership with the District Attorney's Office, the Sheriff's Department, local police department, and the fire department is involved with it too. And it's educating elders with crime prevention and fire safety. And they have blood pressure clinics that they've run for them. And the goals are to reduce criminal activity which targets older Americans, to alleviate seniors' fears of victimization, build confidence, and improve the quality of life, and enhance delivery of law enforcement services to older persons. So we're very happy to get that program up and running. We had that many years ago. One of the great projects we did this year was it's called Sand for Seniors, and it was delivering buckets of sand to senior citizens that couldn't do that themselves, so they could get sand spread out on their icy driveways and walkways, so they had less chance of slipping and falling. So the Sheriff's Department and the Police Department did that. Randall from the Highway Department let us get the sand from over there, and we had delivered those buckets out to the people, and it was a great success. We also initiated a community liaison officer initiative. It's still a work in progress. We're trying to get some glitches with our Facebook page to work so people can actually get in touch with these 2 officers. It's Officer Dave Latour and Officer Mark Rober. And these individuals will be the people from, we have 2 districts in town where people can reach them directly and have that one officer to talk one-on-one. Then they bring it back to us with what the problems are within town, whether it be speeding, or any type of other thing going on with our citizens. So basically, it's to ensure the quality of life issues are addressed effectively in a timely manner. And for community members and business owners to have direct and single point of contact within the police department to improve accountability, communications with regards to different matters. Let's see. We partnered with Project Child Safe and the National Shooting and Sports Foundation and received 300 cable gun locks. And we have done that before, but we did it again. And those gun locks are available free to the public, and they're in our lobby. So anybody can stop in and get those gun locks to store their firearms in a safe manner with the gun lock. Second year in a row, we partnered with the Southampton Lions Club for the holiday kids toy drive. And we collected a total of 250 toys this year to be able to be donated to the children. We actually had a 2-week period where 150 toys were delivered right to the, we had 100 toys delivered to the station during a 2-week period, and then 150 toys on a 1-day morning on a Saturday. It was called Stuff a Cruiser, and people showed up and donated 150 toys, so a total of 250. So we were happy to take part in that and to help out. And that's pretty much what I have. Any questions?
Just a general question. Excuse me, the 4 break-ins that we've had in general, is that people coming from outside of town doing the break-ins, or is
Yes.
that, it's not residents breaking into their neighbor?
It's out of town.
Out of
Yeah.
town, okay. Any special town, or is it just all over?
In different sections of town. That's the unfortunate part. You can never pinpoint where they're gonna go.
And,
Is it mostly daytime?
Yes, yes. The dirt bikes were nighttime though. People were asleep in their house and they went in and stole those dirt bikes.
So were they not locked up and chained, or?
They were locked up in a garage and they broke into the garage that was attached to the house and went in and did their
Just
thing.
rolled them out?
Well, I think you guys did a great job of breaking that multi-state
Yeah.
crime spree. Congratulations to the department.
Thank you, and I have to say that the way this started was we had an officer, John Arici, who was on midnights, he's on midnights, and just saw a car parked at the park on Conant Park, Clark Street side, and it was unattended, and he just sat in a distance and just kind of was observing, and then that turned into the vehicle leaving, and wouldn't stop for him. Pursuit ended in Westfield. Our officer broke off, Westfield took over, and the vehicle crashed. Person took off on foot, was never caught, but from what was obtained in the cars and everything, it really moved everything forward. And then Detective Neal, Sergeant Neal, went and interviewed an individual who ended up confessing, and it just rolled into solving that. So,
It looked like a local robbery turned into, like I said, a 7th state.
yes, yeah, it was a multi-state, and who would have thought that at the time? So it
Great.
was that first officer, Arici, being alert and inquisitive of why is that parked there in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
So
I think the Facebook page is great. It's been a great way. I see a lot of people responding to some of the comments you made. You clarified things, so I think that's a great tool to reach out to people.
it's been working very well. Thank you.
I just had another question. I know that there was a traffic study requested for Route 10 with the new, is any
I
word
have
on
not
that?
seen anything yet. I've been waiting, it was a study for the speed limit,
Speed
correct?
limit, right.
Yeah, I haven't seen the cables. I'm assuming they're gonna put those cables across the road to count cars and get speeds and whatnot, but I have not seen or heard anything as of yet. They're probably waiting, for the weather to break and,
Maybe.
Another month or so, we should have spring.
right.
You
Is
ma-
it not
Are they not scheduled to resurface that entire section?
I have heard they are going to start from South Street in Easthampton to just after the fire department. And,
Just before the fire department, just before the potholes.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
So, yes, we all have our fingers crossed because as we've all encountered that.
Area.
Yeah.
By our place too, though.
The what?
They've been marking up by our house. and
Oh,
said
good.
that
Well,
they
maybe
want it
they'll-
that way.
Maybe they're gonna do patching there, but all I've heard is grinding from South Street, Easthampton to the fire department, but
Is that why they have the gas markings on the ground? Because that's on the corner of Clark Street too, so
yeah.
they're
So we shall
There's
see.
a lot of markings up by us also for the water department. You need to find where the water main is. But the road crew, my mother-in-law stopped them and they were paving.
Good.
good, that'd be nice.
That'd be very nice.
Can I ask you one more question?
Sure.
With the medication delivery, drop-off, is that 24/7?
Yes.
And they
Yes.
come in, you just take all of the bottles too, or you just
Yep,
ask
we
people to
don't
dump
touch
it in?
them, and it's completely confidential. You walk in, the box is in the lobby. And, you know, because we have a 24-hour dispatch, we can have that there, and people can just walk in and put them right in there. No
And the
questions
sharps
asked.
containers are handled by the Board of Health. You don't
Sharps,
get,
right, Sharps container, any Sharps go to the Board of Health. They have all the containers there in a little cubby door, you can drop them in.
okay,
But we don't take Sharps or any liquid medications. But there's directions right on the front of it at what we take and what we don't take.
Okay.
And then with that, the Sheriff's Department comes normally once a month and picks up the box of medications that have been collected. So it's been going very well.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Question for Rainey and John. Are your microphones on?
Yep.
yeah,
Okay.
Is somebody saying they can't hear us?
No, I can't see the angle of the
Oh,
green
yep.
lights, and I was a little concerned because I don't want to be accused of being too loud, and you guys not being heard.
No, we're good.
All right. Next thing on the agenda is a joint meeting with the Bylaw Review Committee. Well,
Hello, everyone.
Hey.
So there are 4 of us on the Bylaws Committee. We're all here tonight. Virginia Ahart, Janine Domina, Francine Tishman, and myself. So the reason we asked for this joint meeting with you was just to give you an update of where we are, and then we need a little guidance from you for going forward, what the process should be. I sent you this memo. I'd like to go through that, and I also sent you a progress chart of each of the articles, so you can see how much we've done and what's remaining. And the final thing that I sent you all in electronic copy is our current version, the red line version of the whole document that we've done so far, so you can see where we are. So we finished making suggested edits, revisions, and deletions to a significant portion of the document by now. A number of new articles have been proposed, and for approximately a year, most of this work has been up on the committee's webpage for all to view and comment on. And we did receive quite a number of comments, and from you folks as well. And in most cases, we adapted the suggestions and made those changes in our proposed draft that we've sent to you. For now, we've discontinued the committee's webpage because it seemed there was a cost for that webpage that the committee was paying out of our own pocket. And now, since we're now at a different stage with the document, it's really ready for significant review on your part and to be moved forward. Most of it, it doesn't seem like that's necessary anymore. Before I go on to the next stage, I want to point out, just flag a couple of the things in the document for you that you might want to think about at some point in the near future. The Finance Committee bylaw, that was there was something on the last town meeting about that, about the membership of that committee. Remember, that was passed so they could serve on other committees. But the way that was written in the warrant specifically said, here's what we propose. Anything new is in bold, and anything to be stricken is written with a line through it. That's the way the warrant was. So what happened, there were some words that should have been, that are in the original, that should have been listed and should have been stricken, that were not stricken. So now that little last sentence at the end sort of contradicts the change that was made. And those words are, and no person holding other elective office or point of office shall be eligible to serve on said committee. And obviously that was just an error because it doesn't make any sense for the spirit of the change that was made. But at some point that probably should go back to town meeting as soon as you can to kind of clear that up, just so it's.
Ed, can you put that on?
Before you go, Velda, I think your paper is making a lot of noise.
Oh,
on the
sorry,
microphone.
sorry.
It's
Thank
okay.
you, thank you. Sorry, folks. All right. And then the other thing, hopefully this isn't an issue for now, but we're going to send you a separate memo about, we just want to flag the shoveling around fire hydrants. We've looked at that bylaw, but we haven't made changes in that because we've looked at other bylaws, what other towns do as well, and we have some concerns about, we know that the town doesn't have the money to, pay people to go shovel all of the hydrants, but we have talked to some people that, especially people who live on the corners of streets, that the fire hydrants get buried and they're encased in ice, and it's not possible for the residents to shovel them. So there should be some potential, medium ground maybe that you folks can come up with. But that's just an issue that we wanted to flag, and we will send you a memo on that. So here's where we are now. Since the bulk of the document has been completed, the next stage would involve the select board reviewing and approving the proposed changes that the committee has come up with. Any remaining sections the committee could continue working on. Once the select board approves our suggested changes, or you make edits or suggestions, that would be forwarded on to town council for review, and then placed on a town meeting warrant, and then if that was approved, it has to go to the Attorney General. But this review by town council, since it's an extensive document, we've made lots of proposed changes, it's going to be costly. And so what we're questioning now is given the financial situation of the town, is this something, the attorney fees to review all of this, once you folks, say it's okay or make your changes you wish, is that something that, is feasible for the remainder of this year or for the upcoming year? Our suspicion is that that might not be feasible. And if that's the case, then the committee suggests that maybe its work should be held in abeyance, and the committee should stop reviewing the remainder of the document. There's not too much left to do, but because things, if it's not going to get really discussed and be on a warrant for town meeting for over a year, things change. And it would be better than, to have a committee start again. But if you, on the other hand, if you think there is money somewhere for the attorneys to review this and so on, the committee is willing to continue. So that's our question for you
My
for
personal
tonight.
feeling is that your committee moves forward with this and gets this as finalized as possible. The next town meeting, if things go as structured, is probably not until November, December anyways. We'll be in another budget period at that point in time, and that's when this board will have to decide if it wants to allocate money to move it. But I think your committee, because your committee is very cohesive, you work together very well, and you're moving forward, I would hate to stop, take a pause, when you're so close to bringing this together.
But if there's not going to be money in this upcoming budget for this.
But we don't know. There may be some changes and free up in the next town meeting, like it says, at the end of the year. Plus, the committee is warm, if you will, flowing well. If you wait and appoint another committee, they gotta come back and decide where they've been and then,
Yeah, so-
get up to speed. If there's not that much left, I would agree, and we'll try to find the money to put it before the legal counsel.
Okay, well, I won't be here for the committee, so do any of I see Janine's not here, but Francine or Virginia, do you want to add anything?
And do you happen to know how long you think it would take to finish up?
Well, if we look at the schedule,
Francine, why?
Yeah.
yes, Francine Tishman. I mean, yes, if you look at the schedule, there aren't a lot of sections to continue, but what Velda's point is, and I think what we were thinking, if this thing sits for a year, and we do more work on it, that then someone else is gonna have to review a year later, or even the same committee, there will be continued changes, and you're gonna have to review it again. If we can't afford the cost of the town council to review the document when we complete it, and ordinarily, I think $25,000 or $30,000 a year for legal fees without this additional work is never sufficient for the town to begin with. So we're looking, I don't know what they would charge for something like this, but it would be certainly on top of what utilization of those monies we already have. So all we're trying to do is hedge the bets and just say, do you want us to go down this road? Having then, a year later, maybe make additional changes because circumstances may change with regard to some of the bylaws. That was our thinking as a group, that it was better to kind of wait. But if you want us to finish,
You
go
look at
ahead.
the size of this document and the
Yes.
dedication of work you guys put into
Well,
this.
that was,
You also have to appreciate the fact that it's a living document. There's going to be change.
yeah,
As the town evolves, there's going to be change. But somewhere down the line, we need to have a document as up-to-date as possible. So then it becomes our
Okay.
charge to try to find some funding
okay,
to do that review.
okay.
And I'm hoping we do. But the reality of it is, even if we find funding and we do the review and it goes to town meeting and it's approved, I'm gonna tell you right now, a year or two down the road, it's gonna have some changes again.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying, but these are massive changes.
I know.
Okay.
And I don't wanna see all that dedicated time you guys put into this put on the side right now when you're so close to bringing it up to date.
Okay,
Get it up to date and let us argue the financial end of it.
fine. That's
Does it
fine.
does the
No,
board feel?
I agree. I'd rather have a complete document that may be outdated in a year than one that's outdated 5 years and part of it's,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
It was, you can see there,
Momentum.
there are a few sections left, so we'll finish it off then.
Great.
Okay,
Number 30.
thank you.
Out of curiosity, number 30, you have public buildings, waiting for the select board. Was that the use of this building? Is that what you guys are waiting for? Because we decided to let Ed make that call, we weren't gonna do it by,
Right.
Right.
so that might,
I think they made a note about that on the progress sheet.
okay.
Yeah, so we'll run that section by him. We'll put some language in to the effect that
Yeah.
it's his discretion, absolutely.
Maybe.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Maybe we can talk with legal about putting a junior partner, a junior lawyer on
For
it.
evaluation
Yeah.
is-
We don't need the top lawyer,
Well,
reviewing
the other
this.
part to this is you have to appreciate, and I'm just saying this to say it, is that all these different firms, the larger firms, have templates on all these different bylaws anyways that have been created, and they've been vetted and reviewed.
Right.
And they use those as quick reference points. So it's not like they're reading the document and checking every MGL to see what occurred and to see what case law there is to make that work. It's available. And you made me smile about shoveling the fire hydrant out, because the corner of Valley and Brickyard, I have to go down there with a front end loader to dig out that hydrant at that intersection. Do I care? No. Do I mind? No. But I have a front end loader. Most people
If you
don't.
don't have a front end loader, it's a bit of a problem. So the other thing we want to point out, make sure that everyone are clear with this, is that anyone who looks at the current bylaws and looks at our revision, the thing that strikes you immediately is that they really need to be rearranged. You know, there are bits and pieces about the same topic threaded all through the bylaws. And we initially thought about that, and we've actually talked to you about this at the very beginning of the process, and we also consulted the attorney. And so I'm just reminding everyone what we decided. And so it was decided that we go through the document the way it is now, make changes to the sections, and then once the document is finished and approved, and this is what the attorney said we would have to do, it could then be rearranged and would have to go back to town meeting again and back to the Attorney General again. You can't do both at the same time because it's just too confusing for people, because if you're trying to do a red line version and you move things around, even though you keep the wording the same, it's going to look like it's a totally new change. So it's just too complicated. So it needs to be approved the way it is first, but it wouldn't be done, and then it really needs to be cleaned up, so when you talk about one topic, it's, you know, it's there. But we did the best we could with it. So I want to add one last thing, that the committee recognizes the significant contributions of Jackie Sears and Margaret Larson, who were members of the committee during portions of our work of the last 2 years. So we thank them for their hard work and their spirit of collaboration. And those of us currently on the committee, we thank you for appointing us and for the trust that you placed in us. That's it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, yes. You're going to be missed, Velda.
Yeah.
Okay.
So can I just ask, so the next steps is that they would get the rest of the policies back, and then once that happens, then we would be reviewing a pretty lengthy document sometime this summer or early fall in preparation for attorney review and then town meeting?
I want to see if there's any law schools that are available that might have an interest in a student project.
Yeah, maybe Western New England.
And about Pioneer Valley Planning, do they offer anything like this?
I don't know. I don't know. Okay, moving on. We have a letter from the City of Easthampton to suspend, terminate intermunicipal agreement for shared conservation officer's position. What has occurred is we are pulling this out of our budget with or without the override. So the City of Easthampton would like us to withdraw from our contract with them. Ed, you can get into the particulars if you'd like.
Certainly. Basically, what they're saying is, since we haven't asked the voters for funding for fiscal year 19, that the position does not exist either in the base budget or the override budget, that they are looking to suspend, terminate the existing agreement that the town of Southampton and the city of Easthampton entered into for a shared conservation agent. And they're looking at it this way, is that there's basically, at this point in time, they're saying there's probably about $2,500 left in Southampton's portion of the grant that normally would have been used for the 9 hours or 8 hours on our end of things for the months of May and June. And by terminating the agreement, or agreeing to terminate the agreement, they would be pulling that money back, and they would use that approximately $2,500 to fund or help fund the conservation agent for the 19 hours during fiscal year 19 in the city of Easthampton.
Well, first question I have is probably for the conservation, are they in the middle of anything that if we terminate this, so they're gonna drop a project in the middle of?
I think that the conservation agent shared position was originally established by a grant, Pioneer Valley Planning Commission. The Pioneer PC got a lot of money to be able to, out of the grant, and it was expected that it would be for 8 hours a week for Southampton through the fiscal year. It didn't start until November, and it was constructed in such a way that if there wasn't funding to continue, that we would not suffer any consequences. With its sole discretion, the municipalities, by approval of the mayor in Easthampton and the Board of Selectmen in Southampton, may suspend or terminate this contract. So I don't see why we should be turning over the remaining money of this grant to Easthampton, not to not be neighborly about it, but I just don't think that that's the intention of this program. We held on to this position as long as we possibly could before it didn't feel right anymore, given the current financial situation, so I don't see a need to turn over the money, unless the Conservation Commission recommends it.
And they want us to immediately cease activities.
Yeah, well, that's why I was wondering, are they in the middle of anything, or is there projects going on that this would jeopardize?
It seems like we can go through the end of June as part of the original agreement and not immediately. They're looking for us to release immediately, so preserve the remaining funds, but I think we should be into it till the end of June.
Can we defer to the Conservation Commission to discuss at the next meeting and to get back to us?
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
Does that sound reasonable, Marla?
I'll make a motion for that then.
Okay, I'll second it. Oop.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Tabled to, what, May 8th?
Thank you.
They have one at 4:23.
Yeah, so our next meeting is May 8th.
Oh, ours, yes.
Okay. Next thing on the agenda is auditor's draft management letter and town draft response. Ed, do you want to?
Yeah, and I had put this on the agenda just so, number one, the Board of Selectmen knew where we were in the process of getting our report back from our auditors, and number two, so that the board knew some of the comments that the auditors had made, and so a rough draft of the responses that we were thinking of making to the auditors to complete that process. So Maureen had taken the rough draft and made some recommended changes to it, and then I took it this afternoon and filled in some of the blanks that were missing as far as timelines and what have you. So you do have that in front of you. And I will say that coming from two other communities, I was very impressed by the, shall I say, the few comments that existed from the auditors for the town of Southampton, both in West Springfield and in Beckett. There were more comments. There were ones from previous years and what have you. So I was very impressed by where this stood.
Should have been here 6 years ago.
So Ed, the version I think that I have does not include the dates you added. So, is that in the email, that 3/11 afternoon?
Should have been in there, but.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you.
And really, the only thing I think that I haven't filled in, because I really
Oh,
don't know.
I have it right here, see?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is the first one.
Yeah.
Clerk to take minutes for X months.
yeah. Okay.
And all I've been able to establish is that there was someone taking the minutes, that probably ended just before or about the same time that Heather left.
That long?
As,
Oh.
yeah, and that, and then when Bob Markle came as the town administrator, that he picked it up for a period of time, and then the current individual started around July or August, correct, Kathy?
Correct.
Yeah.
So basically, this is a response to the audit financially, and the sections have to do with not having minutes for a period of time, IT control, a policy on investment, improved procedure over ambulance receivables, improved departmental receipt procedures, and develop a more formal risk assessment process. So it was a response to those issues, and Ed added some dates for when they would be addressed by. So the only thing you need on this is the, like you said, filling in the period of time without someone taking minutes.
And it just depends on if you look at that as a individual dedicated to that, or if you wanted to subtract out the time that Bob was the interim town administrator and he was doing them. But I would probably extrapolate that there, if you excluded the period where Bob was filling in and doing the minutes, you've probably got about a period of, and I just say probably approximately 8 months.
People have a chance to read that over. I'll make a motion then to approve the responses to the audit management letter with the additional 8 months on section 1 added.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And it's under Ed's signature?
Well, actually, Vicky was signing off on it, so I will get those changes to Vicky and have them send it off to
Okay.
the auditors and
I just want
get the final version back.
to make sure that it's under somebody's signature.
We'll
Okay,
take care of it.
now,
I wasn't, Francine Tishman, just a question on the audit report, because I am a member of the Finance Committee. When will the Finance Committee get a chance to look at the report? Once your response
Once they finalize.
is accepted and we get the final report,
Exactly.
but no input up until that document comes back from the auditors, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
okay, we're moving along. I have here any other necessary business that cannot await until the May 8th regular select board meeting. Anyone have anything? This is not open time to the public. This is an actual topic that can't wait. Ed, is there anything?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Moving to signatures, personnel change form. Lucy Dalton, ZBA, new hire, administrative assistant, as needed pay from a revolving account. I'm assuming that's the ZBA's account.
Yes, it is.
Do you have the original form?
I do.
And it is signed off by everyone except this board?
That is correct.
Does this board want to make a motion?
Just a correction on the title, it says clerk, so just rather than admin assistant, if that means anything to anybody, but just want to be accurate.
Yeah, it does say clerk on the actual form, but on the,
Right.
yeah, okay, clerk. Do I hear a motion to accept
I'll make that motion
as clerk?
as clerk, correct.
Or a second?
I second it for discussion, because I have a question. Because we want to be sensitive to pay rates. This is an hourly of $16 an hour. Do we have any other clerks who've been there for a while that are making less than that?
Well, it says on here replaces,
Right, but I'm thinking clerks in general, you know, because in general, a clerk does similar work. I just want to make sure it's equitable with people already on staff.
All I can say is personnel board signed off on it.
That doesn't necessarily answer the question, but
I know, but it implies that they must have reviewed it. don't have an answer for you.
I-
Is this a new position?
No, it replaces, it says Janine Domina as clerk.
So Janine was doing some of the work of the ZBA, and now they're hiring someone to do it instead?
For a period of time, I believe.
Okay, so Janine was
Yeah.
filling in.
This is a,
Well, yeah, Janine did it, and then was vacant, and nobody was doing it, which is probably part of the reason why they've been having troubles with their meetings.
Yeah.
This may be a
cure.
cure for that.
This is one of those positions that gets vacant, sits vacant for 6 months, gets filled, operates for a year, then gets vacant again.
Is there anybody out there on the PQB? Out here? No? No.
Well, I'm gonna be mean. We have a motion and a second.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous. Jim, you wanna give that back before Velda comes after me? Miss Velda, she always corrects me.
Sorry.
Licenses and permits. One-day beer and wine license permit, Conan Park for June 3rd for Rebecca Nimmons. Graduation party noon to 8 p.m. I believe this has all been reviewed. Head, all documents are in order.
All documents are in order, yes.
Do I hear a motion to approve?
So move.
Second?
Second?
All in favor?
Can I ask a question? Why is the, one of the documents under a different person's name?
It's a combined party,
Okay. Is,
4 families.
huh?
There's 4 families doing the party.
Okay, but is that typical, though, that the documents have to be filled out by the town? Because some of them have to do with liability. Are they all usually under the same person's name? Because the permit for Corner Park use is under a different person's name than the other documents.
The,
We divided it up among the families as to who was gonna be grabbing what. I'm talking to the mom right now, she's freaking out.
About the party or
And-
this?
and my assistant had gone back and forth with the families because of the discrepancy, and yeah, to us, it appears that, yes, while one family has reserved the park, that all these families are participating, and another family took on, taking on the one-day license, so we do not see any issue with,
So the clans
two-
are all coming together, is that what you're saying?
everybody's participating.
Okay, very good.
But the person that signed the indemnity clause is the one who is indemnifying.
Right.
So that
Correct,
person,
that's
this is
the
Rebecca,
important piece.
Rebecca Nimmons, yes. So that person's indemnifying everybody.
Hand that to Ed. I don't know why she left them for me, but I signed them for her. It's the treasurer's office.
They're not serving alcohol, they're just trying to cover their butt if somebody was to bring it, is why they've got this license. It's a graduation party.
But the-
They're just trying to cover themselves.
But the license is to provide wine and malt beverages.
It's a permit.
Tammy, I don't want to be mean, but I'm going to put you up at the podium.
Okay,
If you're, I take it you're the quasi-representative of this party?
Yeah, she didn't know you were meeting tonight.
Yeah, it's a special license, Tammy.
Yeah, I've gotten it for events there too. It's a,
You want to give your name, please?
Tammy Walunas, 298 College Highway, speaking on behalf of Becky Nimmons, who is 2 Meadow Lanes in Southampton. Yeah, they were trying to do a group graduation party, and all of the families were taking on different pieces of getting the place, reserving the food and stuff, and I had said, well, did you get a beer and wine permit? And she's like, what? said, if somebody brings it and the cops show up, you get in trouble. She said, I'll do that. And then, so she led on that she was gonna do that piece of it. So it's not like they're serving it, it's not, they're just trying to cover their butt if an adult brings it.
Okay, so on the one-day alcohol event checklist where it says source of alcohol, they have not applicable. Should they have checked that and checked BYOB box underneath?
Oh,
Because they're saying there's nobody bringing it. So one contradicts the other.
I know that they're not bringing it, because they don't want it around the kids.
Right,
It's
but
just
I-
if,
but it,
yeah, but somebody always does. Somebody always has their beer that they've got in a cooler.
so they should check off BYOB to cover
She
themselves.
didn't see a box. Was that on the online form?
Yeah.
Here,
Yeah.
would you entertain a motion to approve the license contingent on the restriction that it's a BUI only?
BYOB,
BYOB.
if she comes in
Yeah,
and
I'm telling-
alters the one-day
You
alcohol,
can issue the license with the restriction.
that's BYOB, okay.
Yeah, you can issue a license and put any kind of restriction on a license you want.
Okay, so we'll issue the license and it'll be a BYOB.
Mm-hmm.
That should cover her for what she wants to do, according to her representative.
I'm so sorry.
You're in charge of those.
She asked the clerk twice if everything was fine on the papers.
It's all right, just by modifying a license like that, just basically protects everybody.
Well, that's why we have a discussion, to make sure it's okay. So,
Was there a motion made?
Yeah, I'll call the motion, we'll redo the
Did we
motion.
do the motion?
yeah, redraw the
Who's
second.
gonna do the motion?
John will.
John will? Oh, John?
So, again, so what you're saying, Tammy, is what she's telling you is that they're not planning to bring alcohol, but if somebody brings her own, she wants to be covered, they wants to be covered. 'Cause
Yes.
she's the one indemnifying the event by signing that, so she's responsible.
Yes,
Okay.
that's
So-
why she was trying to cover her butt.
Okay, so we have the license, that's appropriate. And so if we alter this to say the license is only for BYOB as a source of alcohol, I'll make that motion.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any more discussion?
I got a thank you and a kissy face, so.
Tammy, I needed that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous.
And
Don't you say. Yeah, kissy
Yeah. And I'm probably going to recommend this form be amended, because I'll tell you why I think it gets confusing,
Okay,
is that if you correspond this with the checklist, you will see that under name of bartenders and wholesaler where alcohol will be purchased, both of them, they kind of say, one says applicable for all locations except Conan Park Pavilion, attached certification. The other says applies to all locations except Conan Park Pavilion. This is generic for everything, so that if I was going to have a party in my backyard and have alcohol and certified tips or what have you, I think this is more, it doesn't break out the difference of the not applicable to Conan Park, so I think we may have to do that in the future.
would you mind working on that when you get a chance and bringing it back?
I will be more than happy to work on that.
Thank you.
That document, Ed, is the application? I'm not sure what that document is you're referring to.
It's a one-day alcohol event checklist for the Board of Selectmen versus the actual application.
Okay, thank you.
Moving right on along, warrants that have been signed, W 18-47 for $521,763.36, and W 18-41A for $2,130.85. We're now moving into other documents requiring signatures. And the big one, warrant for the annual town meeting. We reviewed the town meeting warrants last year, last week. That cough drop did it for me. And we came to this conclusion, so at this point in time, it's basically just a motion to sign on it.
And I will make 2 comments on it that I found out today, and I did get one comment from our town clerk that just brought to my attention that the mandatory recycling bylaw, which was submitted by the Board of Health, had been at one point in time a while ago in front of the Bylaw Review Committee, but the Bylaw Review Committee did not approve it. My understanding is there's some vagueness as to whether all bylaws need to be reviewed by the Bylaw Review Committee or not, but I will make that comment on that one. Town Council also had some recommended edits to that, which were sent to the Board of Health. Whether they try to approve those recommended edits and amend this at the town meeting, or whether they decide to say, let's withdraw this and work on it in the summertime and resubmit it for a fall-winter special town meeting, I am not sure. The main reason that they actually were bringing this forward was so that the town was eligible for some grants at the transfer station.
Could you find out before town meeting, so if we know we need to pass over it, we can just make it as a simple motion?
Absolutely.
They're meeting tonight, right? Weren't they meeting at 6:30 tonight?
Yeah.
That was my understanding, yes. And then the other thing I will just call to your attention is on, let's say, just read this.
Water Enterprise Fund?
No, on Article 7, which was adopting the clauses 22, 22A, 22B, 22C, D, E, and F of Mass General Laws, Chapter 59, Section 5, which are provisions for veterans exemptions, which move the time period from residency from 5 years to 1 year. The Board of Assessors this evening took a vote not to recommend that particular article due to the current state of the financial affairs of the town. And since they were intended to be the sponsoring board for that article, they have asked how they would proceed if they wanted to ask to have this passed over at the town meeting.
Well, if they simply tell this board to pass over when we're doing the motions, then we could just simply make a motion to pass over. But if we're putting this document together for town meeting, are we gonna not have a comment at the bottom that basically says endorsed or not endorsed by the assessors, endorsed or not endorsed by the finance committee, and so on and so forth?
Yes, and in their particular case, it would, this one would say and the Finance Committee did not take a stance on this one, but for the Board of Assessors, it would say not recommended.
And if there's any questions on the floor, somebody from the Board of Assessors can address them.
Okay. So, do I hear, well, we've already voted on this, so all it needs is signature.
Right.
Correct.
So who's got the master? 'Cause I know I don't.
You will in a second.
It's getting better. Notice the pile's getting smaller and that one's getting larger. And I'm showing on the agenda a warrant for the annual town election.
Correct.
That's just a signature too.
That's just a signature also. Ballots are already being printed.
Mr. Labrie gonna read that whole document?
Already did.
Did I doze off again?
Says something about your mortgage on it, Charlie.
Let's see that.
Deed.
It's a quick claim deed, look at that. Seeing more and more of those lately. Speaking of the town election, I want to remind everyone that the deadline to register to vote for this election is the 15th of this month. So,
Of April?
No, I think it's the 26th, isn't it?
Okay.
hey,
Oh, this
No.
is, we're in April.
I'm sorry, April 25th.
Okay. it's,
For the May
'cause
15th
today's-
election.
May
Today's
15th.
the 17th, yeah.
It's this viper that's killing my eyes here. But let me say that again. We're looking at, you have to register to vote by the 25th of this month to be able to vote in the election on the 15th of next month. And that's what this document's all about. All right. Next is common vicular license, Hamel Family Farm.
Yeah, there's a common victualer's license, the Farmer Series pouring permit winery, and the 2018 entertainment licenses. These were all previously approved at a selectmen's meeting, but we were waiting for the approval of the ABCC, and we were going back through our files and noticed that while that is happening, the ABCC has approved the Farmer Series pouring permit. We did not have the originals
The sign.
signed.
This is gonna be the quietest meeting we've had in a while. Must be an overachiever. That's Rainey's job. Okay, next thing on the agenda, minutes for approval, March 22nd, 2018, and March 27th, 2018. Has the board had time to review? Any comments? Do I hear a motion to accept the minutes?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Calendar of events, Selectmen's meeting, May 1st, it'll be at the library at the Norris School. It's really just a short house cleaning meeting, and the town meeting starts right after it. May 8th is the Selectmen's meeting after that, May 22nd after that. Reminder, town annual meeting is May 1st at the school, and the annual town election is May 15th. We're now going to move into open time for the public. Do I need to read the narrative to you?
Pick a line at random.
Okay? Robert?
Robert Floyd, 15 East Street. Speaking as town moderator, yes, the annual town meeting is in 2 weeks tonight, May 1st, and there's going to be a town moderator annual town meeting information session on Thursday night here, April 26th, at 7 to a little bit probably after 8, where the moderator will read all the articles. People can ask questions. It's not meant to be a debate or why an article needs to pass or not. No voting, but this is our annual, is what we do for specials and for annuals. And I have a question, or answer rather, for John on the lawyer. At a town meeting, anything between the lawyer and the town moderator is private, the lawyer being there only for the town moderator. So if somebody asks what's the legal opinion, the moderator doesn't feel the need to have the lawyer weigh in, the moderator can answer. And the benefit of a lawyer for the moderator is to get legal help if the moderator's in a position that, uncle, I need some feedback, rather than make a decision that might be incorrect or postpone it or get the town or the meeting to postpone it to a time certain, which will be the next day. I've had use of the town council in person a few times. Pretty much confirmed what I believe, but it was nice for it to be there. But with the extra years, there's more confidence, there's more experience, and having the lawyer available by phone is certainly a plus.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Thank you.
Francine Tishman, Bylaws Committee this time. I just want to circle back on the question about the bylaws and the revisions. We've given you a draft now and the status report of what we've completed so far. Are you going to review that draft and get back to us, or do you want us to complete the whole job and at that time you'll review it? Because if you give it to us kind of, I'm just thinking what would be the most efficient way for us to be working. If you have comments on what we've done so far, then we can go in and make the changes now.
I personally believe that we're better off waiting for you to complete
For the
your task
full thing?
and then do the whole thing at one time. And that way there, we're not doing all this double shuffling of meetings, but that's my opinion. I don't know how the board feels about it.
What's your time frame, do you think, to finish it? That would be a question I have.
We would have liked to be done by now. I think within a reasonable time. We don't want this protracted. Virginia, you're here. I mean, the two of us are here.
We have probably,
Another couple months?
Bless you.
Okay, so if,
And maybe
we
in
would
the
want to
meet-
be in business for another couple of months before we present. So if you can give it, if you want to give us feedback and we'll work on it simultaneous with the new things that we're working on, that's fine. If you want to wait until the whole document is complete, that's fine. But I just need to get a sense of when we'll hear back from you folks.
I think Ed wants to say something.
May I make a suggestion?
Sure.
You may want to, over the next few months, take, one or two, or depending on how long they are, and actually put them on the agenda as a topic and review them, so that you don't have this massive document all at once. But and that way you're working through it. You can send the comments back either at that time after going through it, or save them to the end. But at least you're starting the review process, so it's not, shall we say, daunting.
You want to start that on the May 22nd meeting?
I'll be happy to.
No?
I'll add it to the
Grab-
agenda.
Grab the first one and we'll just
Okay,
go from there.
all right.
If I can just add to that, because I think if we do that, depending on the agenda, like tonight would have been a perfect time to do one or two. Last week, we wouldn't have had a chance. Can we also look at setting up special meetings just for the board to do that? Where we can agree to have an extra meeting, saying, okay, we'll meet just to review this, because it's something we want to get done in town meeting coming up in the fall. And we want to also find out legally who can review this, like a law school or a law clerk or junior lawyer. So, yeah, because I don't think we'll doing it one at a time will get done before next year.
Yes.
I have a quick question. When you started this process, were you putting these on the website that people can see and comment on as you're going?
Yes.
And have you been getting any feedback on that?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
Velda addressed that when she said yes. So they were, it was when I was kind of on a hiatus. I think that most of the comments came in, but they did receive comments. They were addressed. And I think whomever would see the results of that when they see the final document.
Excellent.
Okay?
I also just want to remind people that on May 8th, which is our next meeting after the town meeting, we also, Charlie put on the agenda the personnel policies for the town, which is another very lengthy document that's been a long time coming to approval. So just want to remind people about that. We may want to,
That's why I'm looking at May 22nd. I'm
Yeah.
trying to make these agendas so that they're no longer than 3 hours.
Yeah.
Try. I'm not very successful.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right,
Plus, I
so-
would ask that the board try to be kind to me on May 8th, which I'm already stressing out about because the clerk will not be here because it's Long Meadow's annual town meeting that night, so it means I'm taking the minutes.
Okay.
We can always do it on May 9th, so we can have her back.
Make a lot of motions.
All right. So,
If we do,
okay. So the decision is you'll give us feedback as you review them.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
thank you.
Anyone else for open time? Going once,
Wait a minute, wait a minute.
going twice. What, you think I'm blind too? If I didn't tease
Two?
April once in a while?
April West, 54 Strong Road. Last meeting, you had an envelope that you had not opened yet from the Wayne family. And I'm just wondering what the update is on that. And second question is, have you decided to send the other letter to the Wayne family requesting the information on the 2 parcels that have transferred?
I think most of that we talked about before you came in, but we can be glad to repeat it.
Basically, we received a letter from them.
Yeah.
It didn't come in at the meeting, came in actually last.
No, we knew there was something that had come in.
You
It had-
hadn't
Something was
reviewed it.
coming,
Yes,
coming in,
okay,
yeah.
okay.
Right, yeah.
And the letter was sent to us, and we got it on Thursday, that basically advises the town of its right of first refusal
Right.
on the Glendale property.
Okay,
Saying it was gonna be converted to one-family housing.
okay.
And the board is now awaiting comment from conservation, planning, and other committees and boards in the town.
Okay,
Yeah, Concom's meeting on the 23rd, planning on the 18th tomorrow. And Board of Assessors, Doric just left, I was gonna ask him if they reviewed it tonight or will it be at their next meeting?
okay.
Because we have 120 days to get back and say yes or no. Well, you know that more than we do.
How about the other 2 parcels, the Fomer Road and the College Highway? And going back and asking
Yeah, we haven't
for
discussed
that
that.
information.
We haven't discussed that, and it's not on the agenda, so if you want to put it on the agenda for the 8th, we could do that.
yeah, that sounds a good idea.
Certainly don't want to put it on for the 1st.
Well,
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
okay, thanks.
Tamara Lunas, 298 College Highway. I have 2 questions for you. First, regarding that letter that you received from Mr. Wayne, isn't it, I don't know if it's common knowledge, but that there's an agreement with that buyer that he was giving a huge portion of that land to the town, written up, he was buying. Why would the town be buying it for we're getting a ton of it?
There's no
Well-
agreement on that. I mean,
There's a purchase and sale agreement, I don't know what it says. This is public time, not debate time.
Right.
So
Okay.
we can't really answer these questions because I don't have the documents to even look at.
Okay, so by me saying that, will you take a look at that and see what it says? And if it is giving the town land, why would we be going and buying it?
I have no idea why the town would be buying the land if it's being given to the town.
Okay, thank you.
Can
well,
I just
it's the-
finish here? Because I had a conversation last week with the buyer, and he said because of the pricing on the land, he cannot commit to donating any of the land to the town because he needs to make sure, as a developer, that he can make sufficient funds on selling the lots to cover it. So he said he can't make any commitment.
And I believe it's a difference of purchasing the entire property versus a verbal comment made relative to potential, a possible donation. So there's a big difference in both of those things.
And that's not saying those conversations can't happen in the future.
Mhm.
But as of right now, my understanding is no.
And then my other concern is, as treasurer for the Friends of the Southampton Greenway, last meeting, there was some heavy discussion about Labrie Field and people questioning why we're not finishing that project that's going to benefit the town. My concern is that we are very close with the purchase of the railroad, the 4+ acres that would connect Easthampton to Westfield. Concern is that we may not be finishing that project if we give all the we use all the CPC money or CPA money towards other land purchases. Because I guess there's money being set aside for the environmental study, and then it's into the design phase. I'd hate to see us finally get the land and then it just sits there doing nothing because we spent all the money on something else. It'd be another project that did not get completed.
Yeah, there's a warrant article on there, Article 26, for the funding of Labrie Field that the CPC put on there.
Yep.
And that's up to them to put it on there and the voters to
Yeah,
vote on
and
it.
that piece was covered. It was making sure that there was still money there to finish up the Greenway.
I believe, Virginia's here. I believe she said there was like $350,000 roughly left, and we're getting a roughly $54,000 in the next year. Is that close numbers?
Lease too, isn't it?
What?
Isn't the land
No,
leased?
it's not a well, it's a rail, I forget the term.
Would you like me to get into this?
Sure.
Virginia, just give me a second.
Yeah.
With the Greenway,
Yeah.
presently, the town is communicating with Senator Humison about releasing bond money to purchase the Greenway. It's about $340,000. That would come out of state money if that bond is released. I don't know what the status it is, but that's where that's at. The other part to it is to go forward once it's purchased. Remember, it's not really purchased. This is basically a lease agreement for 100 years. Now, the next part to this, April, you're shaking your head. Why are you shaking your head?
Because rail banking is not a lease agreement.
All right, what would you like to call it?
Do you want her to come up here if we're gonna?
Teamwork.
Rail banking is a way to keep the railroad corridor intact, rather than breaking it up so that you have title issues. It leaves the railroad the chance to come back in if an emergency or certain situation arose where they could buy the corridor back. It is not a lease agreement.
What happens after 100 years? Does our right to use it revert back to the railroad?
I don't know about a 100-year thing.
So from your point of view, rail banking is a perpetual?
The railroad has a very unique situation for corridors, which gives them the right to use these pieces of land that have, been parceled together in different types of ownership. If the railroad abandons a rail line, then all of the old titles and ownership rights revert. So the rail banking allows the corridor to stay in place. And I don't know about a time frame.
Okay, so we should check into that.
Well, that's being worked on. The
Right.
angle that we're working on is getting the funding to secure the rail so we can use it.
Right.
So that said, and call it what you want to call it, it's still basically the town has control over it.
Until the railroad wants to
Until
take
the railroad
control.
declares it's an emergency, and that would probably be the federal government declaring that.
Yeah.
And if the federal government declares any piece of property necessary for an emergency, trust me, it's gonna be taken by the federal government.
Okay.
That said, the next piece to that is about $675,000, that's an estimate, to do the design for construction of this greenway, bike path, however you want to phrase that. That money would come out of Virginia's programs, if she has that money. But that money's not being asked for now because the purchase of the property hasn't occurred.
Right.
Or the lease of the program, or the railway agreement, however one wants to phrase that. The other part to it, with the carrot and the stick, is the Metropolitan Planning Organization has set aside $6 million for 2019 budget to construct this.
Would that include the design work?
No. So there are a lot of players involved in this, and then when you throw Labrie Field on top of it,
Yeah.
and other issues,
Yeah.
there's not enough money to do all the programs. The town needs to decide what's the priority program. The Labrie Field program seems to be the one that's at the front of that list at this
It's the
point.
one that's on a warrant currently.
That's the one that's on warrant out. That's on the front of the list. How was that?
The vote is off
That's
to the side
wonderful.
for the
I
front
just
list.
want to point out, so that people understand, I'm Virginia Ahart, Chair of the Community Preservation Committee, that because we will not, the town will not outright own the rail corridor, community preservation money cannot be used for that, to pay for whatever you want to call it.
So purchase or improvements?
Well, for the improvements down the line, we've been funding them. And we funded them several times so that they could do the studies they needed and things like that. If, well, just try to say a few things about the finances. I know it's a lot of money for the Labrie Field. That money should have been spent, or it should have been started 8 years ago. It would have cost a lot less then. We are doing nothing, we are proposing to fund nothing more than what was proposed way back then and has never been worked on. Community preservation works on projects when somebody brings a project to them. Guess what? We haven't any other projects at this point. The two that are coming to town meeting, one for working on the cemetery and the Labrie Field, clears our agenda of projects. We have to have a project, and then we can look at it and we can talk about funding it. So until that moment, and that by then we might know some things about what is happening with state money. But to sit here and say, oh, you know, we've got to save for the Greenway. Well, first of all, we can't pay for getting it.
And that's what we're pushing on, is trying
And
to
that-
get the money to pay,
To pay,
secure that land.
to secure it. And then we can move forward with that. And we have money coming in all the time. The figures that I have don't include anything that have arrived for the May 1 payments right now. And yes, we can't count on what we're going to get in November. But the 54,000 comes from approximately what we have been getting every quarter from the town. So if you add that up,
Thank you, Virginia. Thanks. Anyone else for open time? Going once, going twice?
Watch out for your pocketbook, you don't trip.
Good call. Thank you.
I'm Barbara LaFlamme, 20 Cook Road. As you know, I have been making regular visits here. First of all, let me say thank you to you two folks for that awesome forum that you arranged. It was truly awesome, and I appreciate that. Moving forward, as you know, I've been before you numerous times asking all kinds of interesting questions. Sometimes I've left not knowing or confident in the answer. So, in reviewing the agendas for the select board and in reviewing the minutes of select board meetings, I put together a list of questions that I wanted answered. So on February 22nd of 2018, I sent out a list requesting about 17 different informational items that come from your executive sessions. Some of them have not been very responsive or very complete. However, I did get one which really, really surprised me. And that's the executive session dated December 19, 2017. Present were Mr. Kanicki, Ms. Groden, and Mr. Martin. And it says, an anonymous donor is now talking with town council and wants to remain anonymous. They are represented by attorney Donald Abel in Easthampton. As of today, an email was received from attorney Abel stating he is aware of the fact that one of the select board members is trying to purchase the land. This donation, it says here, presently there is a $1.2 million donation from an anonymous donor to purchase the entire property for the purpose of town use. I guess I've got questions about that. We've been saying that the town has no money, the town has no money, the town has no money. Here, evidently, is a donor who was willing to step forward and say, I'm willing to give you, town of Southampton, you, the Southampton residents, $1,200,000. I have no idea what happened. What happened with those discussions? Was this donor so offended in some way that what's happened here, I guess, is my question. This was in order to be in the minutes for December 19, there must have been prior negotiations or some other correspondence that the select board received. Is this the rabbit hole that Rainey was talking about? I don't know, but I know that I've been here many, many times through the summer and through the fall and asking questions, and I haven't gotten any satisfactory answers. And this just absolutely shocked me, to think that someone was stepping forward and somehow or another the negotiation has fallen through. Why? I'm going to leave it at that, but I hope someone will answer, because it's not in the other executive minutes that I've received. They leave me with more questions than answers. Thank you.
Well, I'll answer that, because I felt similarly. To me, I found it hard to believe that we had an attorney that was sending a letter saying there was a donor. To me, I felt we should be as aggressive as we possibly can. We obviously don't look $1.2 million, turn our back to that kind of a donation. And I still could not understand why a lawyer would send a letter if this in fact wasn't, the case. So I asked for a specific conversation with our attorney, and to the point where I actually had a one-on-one conversation with her because I wanted some answers to just that question. And I was assured that there were probably at least 8 to 12 communications trying to go down further, put the money that, is this person willing to put this money in escrow? And the communication ended. And so we felt as a board very obligated to look into this, because we certainly felt that it was very, very important to the town. And the communication ended, and I was assured that there was multiple attempts to communicate with the attorney, and the communication ended.
And just to add on to that, this is what we were hoping would come out of it, and we'd say we've got a donor. It ended on their side. We even set up an account saying, here's the account, we've got it ready for a deposit, and so we don't know that there was a valid donor or not. It was never verified.
It seems to me that a potential donor would not go through the expense of hiring an attorney to represent them. It just doesn't make sense to me.
It didn't make sense to me either. That's why I pursued it and got the answer that multiple attempts were made to communicate, and there was no response back.
There was absolutely nothing additional in the executive sessions that I've requested that gives me any of that kind of background. And if this particular project is dead, as you seem to believe that it is, then those background information should be in the executive sessions that I've requested, and it's not.
Well, that particular meeting, I believe we tried to get the attorney on the phone during that meeting, and I imagine the minutes reflect that. And she was not available, so then I had a follow-up conversation. I think the action from that was that we literally picked up the phone and called her from the meeting.
Did you ever get a purchase and sale agreement?
No, we weren't entitled to that at the time. There was no intent to convert.
Right, I understand. And this person, or people, were pretty clear that they wanted to give it outright for whatever municipal use the town wanted.
Right, but the communication was very limited on that side, and our attorney kept going back, like I said, set up the account, we were ready to go. And there's a lot of reasons why a person would do that and not follow through, but it's not for this conversation.
I don't know who it is. I haven't had a conversation, but when I got these minutes, I was very surprised, disturbed, distressed, call it whatever you will, because our town should never turn back that kind of an opportunity. And as Charlie indicated on March 20th, it was disclosed at the Board of Selectmen meeting that 110 College Highway had been sold to Eugene Labrie. So there was a long period of time between December 19 and the time that it actually closed to Eugene Labrie. And I guess what I'm really curious about is what happened before December 19. It's not reflected in the minutes, and I'll be following up with that. I've only gotten this Saturday, and I'll continue to work with it and try and understand it. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Open time's still open.
Sorry, I have a bad cold. Cheryl Fletcher, Gun Road. I came in late, so I just know that what I came in is that you folks were waiting for comments from Planning Board and Conservation to give their opinion on the right of refusal for Glendale. So I guess my question is, after that, if one of them comes back and says to you, yes, we'd like to exercise our right, how do we take absolute advantage of the time that's afforded us? Do you folks seek out grants? Are you looking for help from the public to seek out grants? Are you reaching out to you folks have access to grants and funding that other people wouldn't. So I just didn't know if there's a game plan in place, because we know how fast 120 days can go. So sorry if you already addressed it, I came in late.
It's gonna be all hands on deck.
Yeah, once we know there's a desire, we're gonna go right ahead with it. And we're gonna talk to the folks that you brought in, Kestrel and everybody else. So obviously, we'd like your help and continue staying in it.
I was interested in that. In Saturday's Gazette, there was a very large article about state foresters and conservation of the forest land, and there are lots of forestry groups, and where Glendale is the majority of forest, we've been trying to get in touch with the Mass Forestry Alliance, and there's a lot of funds available, but I have no idea how we all approach this, because I think a lot of those groups will talk to you folks, and they won't talk to us. So I just didn't know how, what the game plan would be to start all of that.
First stop would be.
Yes, I understand that.
Planning Board.
Yeah.
Well, but before that, if you have any contacts, I guess best way to put it, send it to us, because we can do some work before we even know, saying, if the conservation approves, et cetera, we want to have a few steps ahead of that. I don't
Okay,
want to
great.
necessarily wait until they say that.
Right, because
So-
we know from the landform how difficult it is to get
Right.
folks to commit to come to
Right,
meetings.
and this is a great opportunity.
Okay.
I know your husband, I think it was the one that mentioned about some potential revenue from forest cutting too.
Correct.
So that would be something that would be important to investigate.
So we've left a couple of messages with Nathan Latoile at Mass Forestry Alliance. I even tried again today. He used to be with MDR in APR. I think he was the deputy assistant. We actually tried to get him interested to come to the land forum, and he was busy that night, but he's a very smart guy, and he is the executive director of Mass Forestry Alliance. So I think he's a perfect person.
Great.
So since he's not returning my call, I just think maybe if we put it in writing, or Rini, if you reached out, there's a lot of folks like that. I just don't, some of them will talk, again, they'll talk to you folks in official capacity, but not to us. We're just plebes.
I think the opposite happened, though.
Oh.
I had reached out to him about participating in the forum, and he responded to you.
Yes, that's true.
So I'm happy to reach out, and I agree, it'll be all hands on deck once we
Yeah.
get word back from the other committees.
And Concom's meeting next Monday,
23rd.
23rd. So we'll have that real quick.
Okay.
And I'm out of town, so I won't be able to go to that.
Cindy Palmer, Glendale Road. And in regards to something that Virginia just said, you in CPC can only act on projects once they're brought to you. Given that you said all hands on deck, let's get going, let's make sure we know what we're doing, should the town be interested in exercising this right of first refusal. Sounds to me like somebody should put forth at least a request to CPC to give them a project to work on. Who does that? Is it just an ordinary citizen like myself, a plebe, or should somebody official do that? Either, or both.
Okay.
Because,
I've been doing it for years, just as me.
oh, great.
is that, you're volunteering to do that, is it?
Not
No,
this
no,
one.
okay,
I got enough volunteer time here.
okay,
So I think that's what we do at our next meeting, because all these other committees will have met by then.
okay, all right, I'm just saying there could be some portion of funds available through
Yeah,
CPC.
I think the board would be happy to take a vote on that, and hopefully the vote would be to recommend putting a
Okay.
project together.
Great, thanks.
I guess that's it for open time?
Tammy, did you have another question?
You're all set, right? You okay? Because you weren't here for a couple of weeks, so you don't.
Don't beat her.
I know, she said two things, and I wasn't sure if she got a chance to get to both of them.
All right,
Okay.
all right. This meeting's adjourned.
Want to take a vote?
Want to vote? You want to vote to take and adjourn the meeting?
We'll make a
Did
motion.
you make a motion to open the meeting?
We don't need to. You brought the meeting open.
I can open the meeting, but I can't close it?
Correct. I'll make the motion, we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.